have an honest conversation about advertising awareness and how cognizant the general public is about what they're being advertised to think and how they decipher those messages. I don't have to tell you that in today's digital first mentality that our attention spans are short, meaning that advertisers have less time than they've ever had to capture our attention and the imagination of our wonder. To further buttress this point, I want to bring you statistics from a recent survey. According to a 2021 OAAA-Harris Poll, it revealed a true resurgence of mobility when it comes to advertising awareness, with 83% of respondents admitting they've noticed the awareness of billboards during highway travel. Furthermore, 82% of people who participated in this very survey said they've become more aware of advertising on billboards as they drive around town. And lastly, 83% of consumers admit that they've increased their attentiveness for out-of-home advertising while driving. That's good news for my friend Charlie Riley. He's the first head of marketing for a company called OneScreen, a measurable outdoor advertising platform. Throughout the course of his career, he's been the first marketing hire for 6 different organizations, leading their marketing and sales efforts at seed stage for up to $200 million. He's a father of 3 and has several experiences on leading marketing campaigns that win, and he joined me this week to have an in-depth discussion about out-of-home marketing, how to tell an inclusive marketing story, and how Instagram's new teen policy could actually do some good. We had a wide-ranging discussion about everything in marketing. So, if you're looking to start up your own company or have had some skin in the game, this conversation has something for everyone. So, without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Charlie, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn all about your life in marketing, my friend. Great to see you, and happy Wednesday to you, my friend.
You too. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Now, Charlie, I know that you have been the head of marketing for 6 different organizations, and you're the head of marketing for a company called OneScreen, my friend. So I'm wondering your thoughts on how you've risen so quickly to lead so many organizations' marketing efforts. And I'm wondering if you could tell me about OneScreen, my friend, and what it's all about.
Sure, yeah. So I've been the head of marketing at a number of organizations. I've been lucky enough to lead some teams that companies want to either at different stages, and they want to take marketing seriously or get to another level of growth. And I've been able to be lucky enough to do that, working very closely, sometimes leading sales, but working very closely with sales and customer support and product teams. And I'm currently the head of marketing for OneScreen.ai. We are a measurable out of home advertising platform. So we have the largest inventory of advertising options outside of digital ads. Although some of our ad inventory can be digital. So you think of billboards you see that more and more digital billboards now, digital out of home. So screens that you may see in restaurants and bars. But we complement we complement digital ad buys with out of home options based on what customer needs. So if they are doing a rebrand or a product launch, or if they're doing ABM campaigns, or if they want to drive foot traffic to a retail location, we can create a plan and a program for them that integrates maybe billboards, bus wraps, car wraps, mobile trucks, really you name it based on where they're trying to talk to people. And we can plan that, execute that, and then we can measure the results on that they're used to seeing in other channels. So yeah, it's been exciting to join this team, and it's been exciting to work with a range of companies, both B2B and B2C, who are looking to add brand channels to their advertising and marketing mix. It's this, what we like to say is sort of like the missing piece to their marketing mix. And we help them tell their stories in a visual way in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Charlie, I also wanted to talk to you today about helping companies sort of eliminate what you call their digital ad fatigue, my friend. And I know you do that with a number of different advertising channels that you mentioned. But let's talk about how we can get people excited about advertising without them feeling fatigued, my friend. What do you think is the key there?
Yeah, I think nowadays everyone is inundated with social media ads, email marketing. You just on your phone, people sort of zone out, and the cost per acquisition is going up. The noise is continuing to get higher and higher. So we're seeing a lot of companies want to spread out their marketing mix, and like I said, what we call before, sort of the missing piece that they may not have considered before. If they're doing a conference sponsorship and they want to add some real-time ability to kind of stand out a little bit, or if they are a retail brand or a direct consumer brand and they want to send people, they want to drive sales right away and they can measure that. So people are just, people are spending a lot of time on their phones, but the costs are getting more and more expensive for marketers to talk to the right people. And so we're never asking someone to switch their entire marketing budget into out of home. We think it's a nice complement to connected TV ads, to social media ads, to email marketing. It should be part of the overall mix. And we're seeing results for companies that are diversifying where they're spending their dollars to get in front of the right customers. So when someone is ready to buy, be that a large enterprise software, a SaaS product, to a t-shirt in a store, out of home gives a very visual and a very creative outlet to tell that story alongside all the other marketing channels they're using.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, as the father of 3 kids and a marketing influencer yourself, I'm curious to ask you a 2-part question about how your experience in marketing has helped you become a better dad, and what do you think is the key to being an effective marketing influencer in today's day and age, my friend?
I love the question there's always a correlation, I think, to what you do in your business world and when you take your hat off, and there's really kind of a blended world of, I guess maybe you don't always take your hat off and go to somewhere else. You're always a dad and you're always a marketer. When I'm driving around with my kids, I'm paying attention to what ads I see, and there's always creativity there. I don't know. I think that's a great question. Being a marketer, I think it helps you as a father or a parent to just think about the messages we send all the time. As a marketer, you're responsible, depending on if you work for an agency, you may be working with 5 or 10 different brands that are telling different stories. you have a little, it's not like you can pick and choose who you work with all the time, but you have a responsibility to do the right thing. And I think that it's fulfilling and valuable when you work with brands that you align with and that you care about the similar things, and they're doing the right thing. It's prideful to be able to tell your kids, like, hey, look at that campaign we just ran. Especially without a home, it's a very visible and sometimes tangible execution that they can see or even touch. So that's exciting when you can kind of highlight, uh, here's what I do day to day, how they can help you, how they can help understand that, and you help them understand what goes into marketing in today's world. You have to be good at math. You have to be creative. You have to be a good communicator. These are all skills that I try to teach our young kids about, what, depending on what job they want to go into for the rest of their life. These are all life learning skills that they should always want to be getting better at. So I think there's a good correlation. That's a really good question. I think your other question about, I don't know if I necessarily call myself a marketing influencer. I think I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of marketing professionals, many of whom are a lot smarter and better at this than I am. But you should, I think it's our responsibility to share. It's our responsibility to nurture other professionals that, I've been given opportunities and chances from others. I've been fortunate to lead things like American Advertising Federation's Buffalo chapter for a few years, a long time ago, before I had kids. So I think it's responsibilities like that we should all give back to. And I think we all have ideas. Every marketer is never short of ideas, and I think we all have opinions. Some are louder than others. But it's our responsibility to ask a lot of questions, and not in a sense of just more so to learn. And I think that's what good marketers do. So I think those that are out there more publicly, they're always trying to learn new things. They're always complimenting others on, like, that's a really great idea. How can I utilize that in what I do in my day to day? So I think that's our job. We should be learning about a lot of different things and finding ways. Like, it's pretty hard to come up with new ideas all the time. Not to say we're always borrowing ideas, but it's a good thing to borrow good ideas and to give credit to where credit's due.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, as a parent and a marketer yourself, I'm fascinated to ask you about the new policy at Instagram specifically, because they just rolled out their teen sensitive accounts, my friend, that allow parents to monitor how long and what their kids are viewing on Instagram. So I'm curious to get your thoughts there as well, my friend. What do you think of the new policy, and do you think it will be effective?
So great question about, I think we all have responsibility as marketers, and more from a corporate standpoint, we have responsibility to, I think there's enough research out there now to show that, everyone has opinions on this, but that mobile phones, mobile devices, these are things that I didn't have when I was a kid, and now having young children and seeing them and how screen time affects their behavior, affects their aptitude, a number of things. I think it's pretty proven that it's too much is not a good thing, not only for children but for adults. Is Instagram's attempt to try to be better stewards of children's education and exposure? Sure, I think we should be doing that in everything we do, and it's our responsibility as marketers. Do I think that it's a little too late? Probably. Do I think that it will be patrolled the right way? I might be a little suspect on a company whose main goal is to drive revenue for their shareholders. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be the case. I hope so. I think it's beholden to parents and to marketers to be responsible about, putting the right messages out there and not manipulating messages in terms of knowing how people interact with things and keeping them on their screens. Marketing psychology, at the end of the day, it's understanding human behavior and trying to nudge that in certain ways. So I do think we have responsibility around that. Do I trust large organizations to do the right thing all the time? No. But I think some of them putting the right steps in place, I hope that that's a way that they're trying to show good faith in like trying to make our, the future children and those people that maybe shouldn't be seeing certain ads, trying to put some protections in place for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, I know that you're somebody who believes very strongly in advocating for mastering internal marketing while also executing the external communications when we have sort of a go-to-market strategy, my friend. So why do you think those two things are critically important, and how do they interconnect, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I think internal marketing is important because depending on the maturity of the marketing function at a company, is going to be very different based on who expects what and what people think marketing's role really is. Marketers are asked to do a lot more nowadays. You have to be an expert in finance. You have to understand revenue ops. You have to have a creative angle, but also like an operational side of things. Like there's just a lot of functions you have to do. So the more that you can work with internal departments, the more that you can help sales understand why it's beneficial to sit in on calls and listen to how customers talk so that you can adjust the copy that goes out to the external audience. That's beneficial for everybody, and it's going to help the whole company succeed. The more that you can help a product team understand why we need to know about the product launch schedule and how we can communicate updates so that users use the right functions we want or give us feedback on what functions are working and which ones are not, that just helps everyone's job become easier. And so, marketers are inherently, hopefully, good communicators. And so it's sort of our jobs to sometimes lead that charge internally. You may be working with an HR team, you may be working with an ops team. It really depends on the size of the organization. But there's a lot of great stories to be told internally in addition to external stories. And the more that you can champion that and the more that you can help other departments understand how the marketing function supports them and is there to help them, not just be a service org to them, then then everyone's gonna win. You're gonna get projects done quicker. You're gonna be more succinct. You're gonna talk to the customers the way you want to talk to externally. But the more you can get everyone on the same page internally, it's just gonna be a lot easier.
Yeah, and Charlie, I want to talk to you about return on investment because you believe that marketers and consumers are accustomed to traditional digital channels, but sometimes the return on that investment from a cost perspective isn't always what it's cracked up to be, my friend. So how do you think our audience reach a sort of game plan is changing, and how do you think is the most effective way to reach an audience today?
Yeah, I think that's the magic word for marketers now is attribution, and it's a difficult thing to be 100% confident in knowing in just knowing everything. I think it's, in my opinion, it's sort of impossible because marketing should touch every point, every customer at some point. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be attributed back to first touch, last touch attribution, whatever. There's a million models out there of how you want to do that. There's a lot of tools now that are doing a better job of being able to keep track of all the interactions. I think it's difficult because if you are going to incentivize a marketing team or a sales team on certain things, those reports or that sort of effort could be skewed in a sense of where you spend your time and budget. And so Measurement's a tough thing. I think where we spend our time in out-of-home advertising, I think the perception's always been that can't be measured. How can I understand who saw a billboard? How can I understand if we are doing a conference sponsorship, like what's the ROI on that? We can track that actually. We use a couple different ways to do that. Everyone's phone now has mobile IDs in them. We can track to see anonymously who might have within an audience drove by a billboard, for example, and deliver that back to an advertiser that they can retarget to that audience. We can show a control group ads, or we can show a control group versus a group that was exposed to ads, the difference, and say, hey, you were trying to sell this product on your website. We saw a 200% lift there for the people that did see that ad versus those that didn't. So where I'm coming from an out-of-home standpoint, we're able to do that. I think that goes into the whole overall picture around who gets credit for what, and how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Because it does take time to track every single, say, email send that you do. You can track to that point, but is it like the analogy of like the forest in front of the trees, or I always screw up analogies, but like you have to kind of think big picture of, you can track some things and understand that there's going to be some things that are going to be difficult to track. And can you still make hypothesis and bets on, we think this is going to work. We feel 90% confident in these metrics that this channel worked for us. There's going to be some things there that maybe are a little bit nebulous, but it's going to be difficult to get to 100%, but we're going to make our bets off of that. So I think it's a tough thing for marketers to figure out ROI for every channel. It also depends on what sort of business they are. But the nice part about what we're doing is that there are ways that you can track things in a similar way that CFOs and CEOs are used to seeing metrics in paid search campaigns or paid social campaigns. And there's a lot of really great products that are out there now that kind of combine all that measurement in one place. So there are tools. People are trying to solve this problem and make it easier for marketers. It's still tough to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of people start businesses because they want to make extra revenue. I don't have to tell you that, but I want to talk to you specifically about a startup marketing for startups, my friend. And you say that OAA marketing is a strategy that could be considered to boost marketing sort of return for startups. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that for me, my friend.
Yeah, we've seen outdoor advertising or out-of-home advertising be beneficial for a range of companies. I think the misperception is that there's a couple misperceptions. One, it cannot be measured, which is not true. We just sort of talked about that, of how there are ways it can be measured. Two, I think a lot of people don't understand the breadth of what out-of-home includes. You can do billboards. You could do mobile trucks that could be part of an ABM program and sit right outside of your primary customer's office. You could do street teams, which is maybe more like field marketing. And I think the third big misperception around out-of-home is that we can't afford it. And there are executions that are not cheap. If you want to do a campaign takeover in the top 10 markets in the United States, you want San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Dallas, that would cost a good amount of money, just like if you did a digital campaign and tried to talk to a huge audience. But there are some executions that we can do that we've worked with customers on, if it's maybe event-based, or if it's in secondary markets. And that's a lot of what we do. Is we'll work with somebody. They'll give us a client list, for example, or a prospect list, and say, here's who we're trying to talk to. We can map that out for them and show them, well, you thought that you want to do a campaign in New York City, and here's what it would cost. But a lot of your customers reside in these secondary cities, and it's a lot more cost effective, and we have this much more inventory. So that's really like some of the value prop that we offer, is that we can help map out the right places that someone may be, and it may fit into the budgets. are you going to get into an out-of-home campaign as a very small startup? No, but if you're probably Series A and above, it's probably a really good idea to think about that as a channel to complement your other advertising channels.
Yeah, and Charlie, I want to talk to you about the idea of inclusion in marketing. I was born with a disability, Charlie, and I found out at the age of 9 because of the severity of my cerebral palsy that I will never be able to walk without assistance for the duration of my life. So I've always marketed myself because outside of hosting this podcast, I also talk to businesses about the importance of hiring folks with a disability. So tell me, how do you think we can create marketing strategies with inclusion as a main focus? What are your thoughts there?
That's a great question, and I give you a lot of credit for figuring out ways to tell that story in different executions, like a podcast. This is excellent. I think inclusion is a very broad term, and I think that it's great that probably more so on the advertising agency side of the world, you're seeing efforts be put in place to get really good ideas from a wide range of individuals. And I think, corporations are the same way. And I've always thought this way of telling someone when I started a company, everyone is on the marketing team because everyone has good ideas. Everyone has a voice now. They could do their own podcast. They have a social following. So it should never be the one marketer or just the marketing team who comes up with great ideas. Great ideas can come from anywhere. I think we have to continue to look at both at the in-house world of marketing and from the agency world around how are we making sure that we are representing the audience that we speak to, and that we don't just hire people that look like us. We don't hire people that we feel we want to go out and get a beer with just because we went to the same school or we play the same sport. We should be looking at really talented individuals that bring different ideas from all walks of life. That might be color, that might be creed, that might be sexual orientation, that might be disability, whatever that may be. But I think it's beholden to leadership in every type of company to say, are we making every effort we can to find people that are really smart, that bring different ideas, and that are going to complement what we do. And I think it's good that we're making inroads, especially like I said in the advertising world. I know when I was president of the Advertising Club of Buffalo, we did some programming around inclusion. Is it ever enough? No, it never is. And I think we could always get better at that. So I love that you're bringing up this topic. I think we need to continue to reiterate and reinforce and ask questions like, what are we doing to think about someone that either doesn't look like us, someone that has a different idea, someone that comes from a different background, and are we giving people chances when we really should be, and we haven't thought about that in the past. So I think there's always more to be done. I think telling stories is one thing. I think action is really where the rubber hits the road. And like I said, I'm bad at analogies, but I think that it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to put some programs in place or to hold ourselves accountable to say, hey, did we try to recruit talent in different places than the normal channels than we normally do? And if not, maybe we need to start doing that for some upcoming roles, for example, like finding tangible ways to actually take action versus just saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, I know that we live in a digital age today, but you and I both agree that both to do only digital marketing isn't enough today, my friend. So how do we maximize our audience reach and really understanding that we have to meet people where they are from a marketing perspective? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm here at One Screen. It's, that we do offer an alternative, again, not a replacement, but an alternative to digital channels. No one's going to go all in on one channel, but I think there may be some channels, even things like direct mail, which has sort of made a comeback. Out of home that was considered maybe an old school tactic, but it's a great mix of strategy and creativity that now can be measured. And so it is a new channel that people are trying. I think it's one of the ways that I've always looked at marketing, especially from a budgetary standpoint or execution, is keeping a percentage of your budget for experimentation, 15, 20% if you can, to try some different things. Again, we're not asking everyone to give up their entire paid search budget or social media budget to just switch it to out of home. We're working with customers who are saying, here's an opportunity to do a brand campaign or to do a targeted ABM campaign. We'll show you the results. It may not work the first time, but we can hone in on it, just like a paid search campaign isn't going to work the first 3 days that you do it. It's going to take some time to get used to. So we like to work with customers on the idea of, think about experimentation, think about your overall mix. Are you truly talking to people where they're spending their time? People are out and about more. Travel's at an all-time high now after the pandemic. People are in the real world, and they're getting fatigued by just staring at their phone all the time. Out of home is a good place to think about other ways, like I said, direct mail and other things to kind of do an overall mix. But you need to try different executions. You need to try some things. You need to learn from it, and that's where I think it's been beneficial for us that we're seeing a lot of companies, especially if they don't see their competitors doing it in a channel, they want to be first, and then they stand out. They look bigger. Their brand is there everywhere. So we've seen some really good success with those types of brands that are starting with out of home when their competitors may not be spending their time there.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, how do you think you can tell an effective story on a billboard, and how do we get C-suite executives to really value the need for billboards in today's age? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and billboards are probably still the most prominent out-of-home execution. You're used to seeing those when you're driving. But there's a lot of other executions there. Billboards, you have a quick amount of time to tell stories. And that's where our strategy helps come into play. If it is on a major throughway, you have a few seconds it's more brand recognition there maybe. So it's like recall, and you want the overall number of impressions to expand so that when someone does think of the solution that you may be offering, it's subconsciously they're remembering that. There's a lot of other out-of-home executions that you do have more time to tell a story. We do a lot of mobile trucks in if it's to send it to a conference, if it's to put it outside of your main prospect's office, where you could have a QR code there. You have a visual story that you can rotate the creative on. We've done ads in Times Square where we're telling a story there in front of a very wide audience. So you have the visual element of standing out. You can use you can use bright colors. You can use really strong statements. You have a very direct call to action of, are you sending someone to a landing page? Are you asking them to text a number for something to get to opt in? Are you having a QR code there as a call to action? But it gives you a blank canvas with out of home. And if it's bus shelter wraps, you have an inherent audience there that could be standing there for a little bit of time. You have a little bit more story to tell there. On a billboard, it's quick. That's what we advise on in terms of the number of words that are used. So it really depends on the execution, but it's a great blank canvas to tell a story that can always drive back to something else that you want someone to learn more about, usually on a landing page, or like I said, a QR code, or they can opt into something.
Yeah, and as for any new marketing leaders who may be watching or listening to this podcast today, I'm curious, what are some of the things that they should focus on as they start marketing for a new company or initiative? And why do you think they should consider outdoor advertising as a channel as well? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, you should go into any new job without preconceived notions. I like to talk to as many people internally and externally as possible. I want to know what we've done in the past, what maybe the perception is of has worked and has not worked, without being judgmental, because there's a lot of factors that that went into that decision before that maybe someone didn't have access to, or you don't know about. So I think you want to learn of what the perception is. You want to hear internally what people think marketing is and how that you're going to work with their departments in the future. And I want to talk to as many customers as possible. I want to talk to people that didn't buy from us. I want to talk to customers that have lapsed for whatever reason and understand that. So I think it's really important to learn the story before you just start making random acts of marketing. I think that's very important. I think for anyone new jumping into a role, out of home may be a channel for you. It may not be a channel. There's a good mix of companies that it might not be the right time. Your audience may be so niche or so narrow that the executions might be a little too tight there, but it could be a way to stand out. And again, if you're doing a rebrand, if you're doing a product launch, if you have a big announcement, out of home is a great way to look bigger than maybe to amplify that message. If you are in a competitive space that your competitors are not using out of home, that might be the differentiator for you, especially because you can target exactly where it's like an ABM play. If you've got your top 20 prospects, we can map out exactly where their offices are, where people travel. We can put out of home executions there, and it's going to make you look big. It's going to stand out. And so for a new marketer, you want to make an impact early on. Out of home might be the channel that helps you stand out a little bit over your competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, I'm going to ask a bit of a self-serving and personal question, my friend. So I serve on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity in my hometown, and I also serve on their fundraising and communications committee. And I was curious to ask you specifically for nonprofits, what do you think is the key to telling an effective marketing story as a nonprofit, my friend?
Yeah, first of all, Habitat for Humanity is a great organization. I've been involved with the local chapter in Buffalo, and I have a friend who is very involved in that. So, great organization. I think nonprofits are interesting. I've worked with a number of nonprofits on boards and just volunteer work. I think the one thing that's important for nonprofit marketing is, I know budgets are always thin. I know resources are always light. Usually you're competing for someone's wallet share. You're competing for their time, that whole time, talent, and treasure element around nonprofits. There's a couple things. You have to be really specific about what your goal is. Is it finding volunteers? Is it finding fundraising? Is it, are you trying to drive to an event like a gala or something along those lines? And try not to do everything, because messages can be muddled when someone doesn't understand what you do. And I think one important thing to think about from a nonprofit standpoint, and this is a business standpoint as well, is don't assume that the person reading your ad, the person getting your email, the person seeing your name on a billboard remembers and understands what you do. And that's why brand is important. That's why investing in the long-term brand building around, like, when someone sees Habitat for Humanity logo, they know, because it's been around for a while and that the branding's been there, like, oh, I know what they do. If you're a smaller nonprofit, it's difficult for that to happen. So you have to remind people what it is you do, who it is you support, and be very direct on the ask, because again, people are asked from a number of different organizations. They're asked from their alma maters. They're asked from 5 or 10 different charities. If their kids are raising money for their sports teams, they're being inundated with asks. So be direct about what you're asking for. Be direct about where that money or where that time, talent, or treasure is actually going towards, and how it's going to impact the organization or the constituents. And just remind them what you do and why the mission is what it is, because we even as marketers for for-profit brands, I'm always amazed that when I get an email and they don't remind me what it is their company does, and they assume I remember it. and everyone gets a million emails a day. There's a good chance I don't remember what it is you do. And so for nonprofits, I think it's as important, if not more, for them to remind people what they do and be very direct about the ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, I've got a trio of questions left for you. And the first of the three, my friend, is, I want to circle back to something I asked you earlier about sharing your own story in your own marketing story. And in my case, I do that because, my personal story of overcoming obstacles and living with a disability has helped me get speaking engagement. So tell me, my friend, how important is it to be relatable and humanized in your marketing story? And how much of a competitive advantage do you think that is?
It's maybe cliche, but the term, but people buy from people, they don't buy from companies. I think that's why you see on LinkedIn way more engagement for someone telling a personal story versus a company page. People relate to companies or people or stories that look like them, that sound like them, they're going through the same obstacles, they're going through the same problems. It's cliche, but it's true. And so I think it is important to, as marketers, I think we have to not only empower others around your organization to have an appetite to tell some stories. Now, not everyone's comfortable with that. There's also a credibility element. I've worked for brands and organizations and industries where I didn't know a lot about the product. I understood the product and how to sell it, but I wasn't using the product day to day. And so, you need to find other people that could tell that story credibly. So I do think it's very important to be authentic. Nowadays, everyone has a voice if they want it to have it or not on social media channels. That's good and bad. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone's going to want to be public out there, and that's okay. Like, you can't force employees to do that. But for those that do, it is a massive competitive advantage. Organic opportunities that come into companies, and there's a number of proven brands. Gong, Clary, Hockey Stack. There's a number of B2B brands that I can think of off the top of my head that there are strong personalities that have told stories, and that's negated them from having to spend a lot of money on advertising because it's organic growth. So I think it's pretty proven that that's a viable channel. You need a couple things to happen. You need executive buy-in. You need consistency. You need authentic. You need to be authentic. I was going to butcher that word, but so it is important to have personal stories. I think as we're seeing more and more of that happen with marketing, it's a superpower for the ones that can get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor, do you think there's a difference between marketing to the masses versus marketing to a specific sort of campaign or cause, my friend? So do you think there's a difference between marketing to the masses versus marketing to something specific? What are your thoughts there?
There is a difference. It depends on, if going back to maybe the example of a B2B versus B2C, if you're selling t-shirts, your margins are going to be small on a retail brand that sells apparel. And your audience to buy that is much bigger. So I think that's a different story there. You're going to test out different messaging, but it's not going to be ABM, or it's not going to be very personalized because you may not have that data, and you need a wide range of people for a very early conversion. If you're selling B2B SaaS, mid-market and above, it's a long sales cycle. You're talking to possibly 24 people on the buying committee. It's going to take some time. If you send the same message to all of them, it's not going to resonate because the CFO cares about something very differently. They have a different interest than the marketing lead or an ops lead. So it is very different. I think that it depends on the complexity of the company, it depends on the complexity of the product, but one-to-many versus maybe a more one-to-one or one-to-few approach it definitely varies depending on the type of company, but I do think that they're different executions and they're used for different results.
Yeah, and Charlie, my final question for you is, if one of your three kids asked you or was asked to reflect on your legacy at their wedding and the impact that you had on their life, my friend, what do you hope your kids say about the legacy and principles that you've instilled in them, my friend?
Wow, I mean, that's a great question, and I'm kind of like, it makes you think. I think I hit on this a little bit earlier, especially with some of your questions about like uh, large companies and their responsibility around fostering our youth. Wow, I mean, if one of my kids was giving a toast at their wedding, hopefully they wouldn't be because it should be about them, not me. But if they were sort of talking about what my legacy was and where like what I did to impact them and maybe others, I would hope that they would say, you know, that I put people first and you're supposed to be as, there's this element of like servant leadership, I guess, maybe on the business side of the world. But that carries over to again, that the home life balance blends together. So I think you want to be a good person that I think I heard someone frame this up as like, you want to be a door holder and, or at least be known as a door holder. And maybe just from, coming from Buffalo, New York, maybe I just see more door holders here and you're just grown up to be that way. But you're someone that, worries about the next person coming behind you, not necessarily just walks through the door and closes it and doesn't care. You're always asking how can I help? What can I do? And you mean it and you do it. Those are the things that I try to instill in my children. I want them to see that I'm showing respect for others, that I'm being polite. And am I always doing that? No. Could I always be better at that? Absolutely. Do I lose my cool sometimes? 100%. But I think they watch and they pay attention to everything. And so, to be a door holder, to be a person who asks and does things without expectations from others, they've seen me volunteer for charity events. They've seen me do a run for cancer research. They've seen me do things that are not for me, for other people. And I think if they understand it or not, those are the types of things that you want to instill in the youth, that hopefully they catch on, that catches on to them, and that they say, that's my parents taught me that. So excellent question, man. That made me think, I'm going down a lot of different ways there, but that's a really excellent question of like, at the end of the day, we're marketers. There are people that are doing way more important work in their lives than what we do as marketers. I love what I do, but our job is to help the next generation of marketers and the next generation of kids just, be better people. And I think sometimes we can do that. We work, by doing campaigns with nonprofits, by doing campaigns with the companies that are doing the right types of things. I guess that's a small way to do that, but yeah, great question. I love that, and I'm gonna reflect on that even more after this call.
Well, I appreciate that. And just before I ask you how people can get involved with One Screen and contact you personally, my friend, I know you're a big Bills fan, my friend. I see the Bills helmet over your shoulder. So what's the key to creating a marketing strategy to get the Bills to win the Super Bowl? What do you think the key is there, my friend?
Oh man, if I know you're a Lions fan, I think we commiserate with each other, and I've always liked Barry and a few of the I think we're kindred spirits in terms of like cities that just need a win like that. Yeah, if the Bills ever win it, I think the city would I don't know, it might get ugly, but it'd be great if Buffalo could kind of pull it together because a lot of the fans need it. Yeah, it's I think part of part of what you do from a scrappiness standpoint with like small companies is, being from Buffalo, people think that it snows here all year round. It's a great place to live. And I think there's a little bit of a chip on everyone's shoulder that works and lives here. So I think that rubs off on the team and they see that. So yeah, if we could ever get a Bills championship here, it would be, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how it would go, but it'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a national holiday in Buffalo for the year, I promise, okay? Hey, Charlie, tell me if people want to get involved with One Screen or contact you personally, my friend, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions about out-of-home advertising, there's a lot to it, and it's I think I'm still learning, but I've been involved in it a couple different ways, and it's really, like I said, it's a mixture of science and art, which is the fun part. So check out onescreen.ai. There's a lot of great resources there, or you can talk to someone on our team and we can answer questions. We could review a media plan if you've already done out-of-home and you're like, hey, is this the right place we should be? We can review stuff like that. So One Screen AI is a great resource for out-of-home advertising. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if anyone just searches Charlie Riley on LinkedIn, please connect and be happy to talk to any other marketers or any business leaders.
Fabulous. Well, Charlie, I want to thank you for the inroads that you're making in the field of marketing and for joining me to engage in conversation this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
This was great. Thanks. Excellent questions, and I really had a great time. So thanks for having me.